Details of investigation. On Thursday, February 5, 1987, this office was contacted via telephone by Sergeant Joanne Van Meter of the Tallahassee Police Department, Juvenile Division. Sergeant Van Meter requested assistance in identifying 2 adult males and 6 minors ages 2 to 7 years in age. The adult males were tentatively identified by TPD as Michael Holt Hahn and Douglas Ammerman, both of Washington, D.C., who were arrested the previous day on charges of child abuse. The police had received an anonymous telephone call, relating to 2 well-dressed white men wearing suits and ties in Myers Park, Tallahassee, apparently watching 6 dirty and unkempt children in the playground area. Holt Hahn and Ammerman were near a 1980 blue Dodge van bearing Virginia license number XHW 557, the inside of which was later described as foul-smelling, filled with maps, books, letters, and with a mattress situated to the rear of the van which appeared as if it were used as a bed, and the overall appearance of the van gave the impression that all 8 persons were living in it. The children were covered in insect bites, were very dirty, most of the children were not wearing underwear, and all the children had not been bathed in many days. The men were arrested and charged with multiple counts of child abuse and lodges in the Leon County Jail. Once in custody, the men were somewhat evasive in their answers to the police regarding the children and stated only that they were both the children's teachers, and that they all were en route to Mexico to establish a school for brilliant children. The children tentatively were identified as follows: Mary Holt Hahn, white female age 7, Max Livingston, white male, age 6, Benjamin Franklin, white male age 4, Honeybee Evans, white female, age 3, BB, white male, age 2, John Paul Holt Hahn, white male, age 2. The children initially indicated that they lived in tents in a commune in the Washington, D.C. area, and were going to Mexico to go to a school for smart kids. This office contacted the office of the RAC in D.C. and spoke with Senior Special Agent Bob Harold. This agent requested telephone numbers and names of police persons in area departments that might be aware of said activities described by the children and to follow up on the leads, the Virginia license number, and a check on the men's names with local law enforcement. A short time later, this office was contacted by Detective Jim Bradley of the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. Bradley indicated that the case here in Tallahassee appeared to be strongly related to a case he was currently working on in the Washington, D.C. area. He stated that the actions of the 2 men in custody in Tallahassee, along with the children, just might give his case enough probable cause for search warrants to search premises occupied by a cult group called the Finders. This agent directed Bradley to telephone TPD and discuss with police directly any activities forthcoming relating to the case. At this time, it was determined that there was no custom violations found to exist, and therefore, this case is being closed pending receipt of additional information. Memo to file. 2. Resident Agent in Charge. Date: February 7, 1987. From Special Agent G. Subject: Customs Cooperation, Interest in Tallahassee, Washington HPD Child Abuse Investigation. On Thursday, February 5, 1987, the duty agent Bob Harold received a call from Senior Special Agent Walter Kreitlow, United States Customs Service, Tallahassee, Florida. Kreitlow was seeking assistance in contacting an appropriate local police agency to coordinate a child abuse investigation with the Tallahassee Police Department. Kreitlow further requested assistance in checking some names, addresses, and a vehicle through the Customs Child Pornography Unit database, and stated there was some suspicion of the subjects being involved in supplying children for the production of child pornography. Further, he was informed by the Tallahassee Police Department that the children may have been en route to Mexico from the Washington, D.C. area. The possibility of customs interest in the investigation due to possible violations of the Child Protection Act of 1984, and the alleged nexus with the U.S.-Mexican border were discussed and agreed upon. Senior Special Agent Kreitlow related the following background information. Kreitlow was contacted by the Tallahassee Police Department for assistance in identifying 6 children and 2 adults taken into custody in the Tallahassee area. U.S. Customs was contacted because the police officers involved suspected the adults of being involved in child pornography, and knew the Customs Service to have a network of child pornography investigators, and of the existence of the Child Pornography and Protection Unit. Kreitlow stated the 2 adults were well-dressed white males. They had custody of 6 white children, boys and girls, ages 3 to 6 years. The children were observed to be poorly dressed, bruised, dirty, and behaving like animals in a public park in Tallahassee. The police were notified by a concerned citizen, and all 8 persons were taken into custody. The suspects were living out of a white 1979 Dodge van, Virginia license number XHW557. Upon being taken into custody, the adult white males refused to cooperate, one of whom produced a business card with a name on one side, and a statement on the other. The statement indicated that the bearer knew his constitutional rights to remain silent, and that he intended to do so. Upon interviewing the children, the police officers found that they could not adequately identify themselves, nor their custodians. Further, they stated that they were en route to Mexico to attend a school for smart kids. Kreitlow was further advised the children were unaware of the function and purpose of telephones, televisions, and toilets, and also that the children had stated they were not allowed to live indoors and were only given food as a reward. After receiving the request from Tallahassee, Senior Special Agent Harold contacted me while I was on official business at Customs headquarters. He requested that I conduct computer checks on the Customs Child Pornography Unit database. The checks were to be conducted on the names, addresses, and vehicle number provided by Kreitlow. After conducting the computer checks, I made direct contact with Kreitlow to inform him that all the checks were negative. At that time, I was informed by Kreitlow that the Tallahassee police had discovered large quantities of records, to include computer disks and a U.S. passport in the van. From some of these records the police had obtained tentative identification of the two adults, and partial identification of the children. Furthermore, the two Washington, D.C. addresses had been discovered through these documents, one of which was verified through the vehicle registration. I advised Kreitlow I was leaving headquarters and he would be receiving a response to the remainder of his request from Senior Special Agent Harold. I then left as stated and proceeded to conduct other business in the district. A short time later, at approximately 11:30 a.m., Harold contacted me by radio, and advised me that a Detective Jim Bradley of the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department was interested in the information provided by Senior Special Agent Kreitlow, was in contact with Tallahassee, and would very likely be conducting search warrants in the area later in the day. He also informed me that U.S. Customs was invited to participate due to the continuing possibility of violations of law enforced by the Customs Service. As I was already in Washington, I terminated my other business and proceeded to make contact with Detective Bradley, Intelligence Division, MPD. Upon contacting Detective Bradley, I learned that he had initiated an investigation on the two addresses provided by the Tallahassee Police Department during December of 1985. An informant had given him information regarding a cult, known as the Finders, operating various businesses out of the warehouse located at 1307 4th Street, Northeast, and were supposed to be housing children at 3918/3920 West Street, Northwest. The informant was specific in describing blood rituals and sexual orgies involving children, and an as of yet unsolved murder in which the Finders may be involved. With the information provided by the informant, Detective Bradley was able to match some of the children in Tallahassee with names of the children known alleged to be in the custody of the Finders. Furthermore, Bradley was able to match the tentative ID of the adults with known members of the Finders. I stood by while Bradley consulted with AHSA, Harry Bonner, and obtained search warrants for the two premises. I advised Acting RAC Senior Special Agent Tim Holleran of my intention to accompany MPD on the execution of the warrants, received his permission, and was joined by Senior Special Agent Harold. Harold accompanied the team, which went to 1307 4th Street, and I went to 3918/3920 West Street. During the execution of the warrant at 3918/3920 West Street, I was able to observe and access the entire building. I saw large quantities of children's clothes and toys. There were diapers, as well as clothing in the toddler to preschool range. No children were found on the premises. There were several subjects on the premises. Only one was deemed to be connected to the Finders. The rest were renting living space from this individual. He was identified as Stuart Miles Silverstone, date of birth, June 19, 1941, U.S. passport number 0109589991. Mr. Silverstone was located in a room equipped with several computers, printers, and numerous documents. Cursory examination of the documents revealed detailed instructions for obtaining children for unspecified purposes. The instructions included the impregnation of female members of the community known as the Finders, purchasing children, trading, and kidnapping. There were telex messages using HCI account numbers between a computer terminal believed to be located in the same room, and others located across the country and in foreign locations. One such telex specifically ordered the purchase of 2 children in Hong Kong to be arranged through contact in the Chinese embassy there. Another telex expressed an interest in bank secrecy situations. Other documents identified interest in high-tech transfers to the United Kingdom, numerous properties under the control of the finders, a keen interest in terrorism, explosives, and the evasion of law enforcement. Also found in the computer room was a detailed summary of the events surrounding the arrest and taking into custody of the 2 adults and 6 children in Tallahassee, Florida on the previous night. There was also a set of instructions which appears to be broadcast via computer network which advised participants to move the children and keep them moving through different jurisdictions, and instructions on how to avoid police attention. One of the residents was identified as a Chinese national. Due to the telex discovered referencing the Chinese embassy in Hong Kong, he was fully identified for future reference. Wang Gangxin, date of birth, September 27, 1947, place of birth, Tianjin, People's Republic of China, passport number, 324999, entered the U.S. on January 22, 1987, admitted until December 31, 1987. He is in the U.S. as a graduate student in the anatomy department of Georgetown University. His visa was issued on November 10, 1986, in London, England, number 00143. During the course of the evening, I contacted Sector 4 to initiate a Treasury Enforcement Communications System check on Silverstone, and initiate an archives check on him for the last 4 years. I also contacted Senior Special Agent Halloran to keep him advised of the proceedings and asked for, and received, permission to contact Senior Special Agent John Sullivan of the CPPU to query some names through the CPPU database. Halloran told me he would call Southeast Region Headquarters to keep them posted on the proceedings as well. I later contacted Senior Special Agent Sullivan for the above stated purpose, and in the discussion that followed, I gave him some background on the purpose of the request. I advised him that the information was not for dissemination at headquarters, that Region was being notified, and that Region would probably contact headquarters later if deemed necessary. Sullivan assured me that the information would go no further until official notification was made by Region. No positive matches were obtained from the CPPU database. I was later joined at the West Street address by Harold. Harold advised me that there were extremely large quantities of documents and computer equipment at the warehouse, and that HPD was posting officers inside the building there and sealing the building until morning, in which a second warrant for that premises would be obtained and executed. Harold also advised me that the news media had been notified and had been waiting for the execution of the warrant at the 4th Street address. Detective Bradley later stated that the MPD public information officer had been contacted by a Tallahassee reporter. When it became apparent that public information officer had no information on the search warrants, the reporter contacted local media representatives and a check of public records containing the affidavits for the search warrants disclosed the locations and purpose of the warrants. Detective Bradley surmised that someone on the Tallahassee Police Department was the original source of information for this press. I advised Senior Special Agent Halloran of the involvement of the press, and he stated that he would, in turn, relay the information to Region. Harold and I assisted in the transport of the evidence seized pursuant to the warrant and cleared MPD after the press left the area. On Friday, February 6, 1987, I met Detective Bradley at the warehouse on 4th Street, Northeast. I duly advised my acting group supervisor, Senior Special Agent Don Bloodworth. I was again granted unlimited access to the premises. I was able to observe numerous documents which described explicit sexual conduct between the member of the community known as the Finders. I also saw a large collection of photographs of unidentified persons. Some of the photographs were nudes, believed to be members of the Finders. There were numerous photos of children, some nude, at least one of which was a photo of a child on display, and appearing to accent the child's genitals. I was only able to examine a very small amount of the photos at this time. However, one of the officers presented me with a photo album for my review. The album contained a series of photos of adults and children dressed in white sheets participating in a blood ritual. The ritual centered around the execution, disembowelment, skinning and then dismemberment of goats at the hands of various children. This included the removal of the testicles of the male goat, the discovery of the female goat's wombs, and the baby goats inside the wombs, as well as the presentation of a goat's head to one of the children. Further inspection of the premises disclosed numerous files relating to the activities of the organization in different parts of the world. Locations I observed are as follows: London, Germany, the Bahamas, Japan, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Africa, Costa Rica, and Europe. There was also a file identified as Palestinian. All the other files were identified by a member name or project name, the projects appearing to show fronts being operated by the Finders. There was one file entitled Pentagon Break-In, and others which referred to members operating in foreign countries. Not observed by me, but relayed by an MPD officer, were intelligence files on private families who weren't related to the finders. The process undertaken appears to have been a systematic response to local newspaper advertisements for babysitters, tutors, etc. A member of the finders would respond to those ads, and gather as much information as possible about the habits, identity, occupation, etc., of the family. The usage of this information is still unknown. There was also a large amount of data collected on various child care organizations. The warehouse contained a large library, 2 kitchens, a sauna, hot tub, and a video room. The video room seemed to be set up as an indoctrination center. It also appeared that the organization had the capability to produce its own videos. There were what appeared to be training areas for children, and what appeared to be an altar set up in a residential area of the warehouse. Many jars of urine and feces were located in this area. I should also mention that both premises were equipped with satellite dish antennas. I discussed the course of action to be taken by HPD by Detective Bradley. He stated he was only interested in making the child abuse cases. I was assured that all of the evidence would be available to U.S. Customs in furtherance of any investigative/criminal action pursued. MPD personnel were to begin around-the-clock review and sorting of the evidence until completed. Customs will have access after this is accomplished. This will include several U.S. passports discovered during the search. Upon leaving the 4th Street premises, I encountered a news media representative and was asked the reason behind U.S. Customs' involvement in the investigation. I told the reporter that I could not discuss anything and referred her to the RAC. I left immediately thereafter. There is no further information available at this time. It should take 3 to 5 days for all the information to be sorted, reviewed, and logged by the MPD. I will maintain contact with Detective Bradley until the evidence is again accessible. Respectfully submitted, Ramon J. Hartens, Special Agent, USCS. Details of investigation. On March 31, 1987, I contacted Detective James Bradley of the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. I was to meet with Detective Bradley to review the documents seized pursuant to 2 search warrants executed in February 1987. The meeting was to take place on April 2nd, or 3rd, 1987. On April 2nd, 1987, I arrived at MPD at approximately 9 a.m. Detective Bradley was not available. I spoke to a third party who was willing to discuss the case with me on a strictly off-the-record basis. I was advised that all the passport data had been turned over to the State Department for their investigation. The State Department in turn, advised MPD that all travel and use of the passports by the holders of the passports was within the law, and no action would be taken. This included travel to Moscow, North Korea, and North Vietnam from the late 1950s to mid-1970s. The individual further advised me of circumstances which indicated that the investigation into the activity of the finders had become a CIA internal matter. The MPD report has been classified as secret and was not available for review. I was advised that the FBI had withdrawn from the investigation several weeks prior, and that the FBI Foreign Counterintelligence Division had directed MPD not to advise the FBI Washington field of anything that had transpired. No further information will be made available. No further action will be taken. Action to be taken by LESD/DECS. No action to be taken on the basis of this report. No further information will be available. No further action will be taken.